Hey guys, so as you can see, I'm recording from a different place actually in my house. I decided to record from my comfy chair today instead of at the kitchen table like I normally do. But today is the day that I decided that I'm going to start telling the story about the affair. And so I kind of want to actually do an introduction video leading into the story to kind of just prepare everyone of how it's going to kind of go. So one of the things I wanted to mention is this, like, the affair spanned pretty much my entire marriage. So there's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about all the events leading up to it, how I kind of perceived that, how I processed all of that information, the actual affair, how it continued over time, and just all the factors that, how it affected me in my relationship with my ex-wife and our marriage and things like that. So there's a lot of information, a lot of insane information, and it's taken me a long time to get here to get to this point to tell this story. But because of that, because there is a lot of information, this is going to be released in multiple parts. Now I know TikTok, we have the longer length videos now. So I am still going to try to give as much information I can per video, so you don't have to sift through a ton of parts. But because there is a lot, I am going to have to do it in parts. And unfortunately, I already know that I'm not going to be able to have all the parts done and released all at once, so you can just see the whole story all at once. So there'll be days between videos. I'm sorry for that. I know that sucks. I hate when people do that on TikTok, but that's just the way this particular story is going to have to be told. Also, because of the players involved, it's going to be a little bit tricky in telling the story because, one, to protect myself, I'm trying not to release names so nobody else can come back on me. But that does make it tricky to tell a story when you don't have names. What I'm going to try to do is, I think what I decided is I am not going to give names to my ex-wife or the person she had an affair with because I just don't want to dignify them with a name. So I'm still going to refer to my ex-wife as my ex-wife. The woman that she had an affair with, this person was a person she dated many, many years ago. I think when I figured out the timeline in about like the 2004-ish time frame for just a few short months. And since that time, that woman is actually now married. That she's actually been married for, I think legally about as long as me and my ex-wife were, but they've been together for like 15 years, her and her wife. That woman's wife, her name is, I'm not going to give her name, but I also have talked to her. And so, and I'm going to tell a story of how that all came about. But to protect her and out of respect for her, I'm not going to use her real name. But I did give her the opportunity to pick her own name when I tell this story. And so she decided on Cecilia, because in Hebrew, apparently it meant blind. And so she's really funny. I'm glad she was able to find some humor in this whole tragic story. But so that woman I'm going to refer to as Cece for short. So instead of Cecilia, I'm going to refer to her as Cece. And then I'm going to try to refer to her wife, because they're still married, actually. Her wife is, Cece's wife is the woman who had the affair with my ex-wife. So hopefully you all got that down in your brain. I'm going to keep I might have to keep repeating that in other videos too, but maybe I'll make a diagram and put it up on the page. But, there's a lot to tell. There's going to be a lot of parties. I'm going to try to navigate that without giving any real names to just, protect myself and everybody else's identity for that matter. So, I appreciate you being along for this journey and this story. And here we go. All right. So the first thing I want to start with is kind of talking about cheating in general. I think that, everybody kind of has their own definitions of cheating. There's different kinds of cheating. And I think it's important to kind of talk about what that was for me and my marriage, because this was actually a topic that my ex-wife and I talked about quite a bit before we got married. It was actually really something that was really important to me and something that was supposedly really important to her. And so, I know like there's physical cheating, you actually sleep with another person when you're married, or there's also emotional cheating where you put your energy into someone else instead of into your spouse when things aren't going very well, and that's more about getting validation rather than like working through a difficult time with your spouse. And so to me, both forms are equally damaging in different ways. I personally feel like, and maybe this is just because this is what I experienced, but I feel like emotional cheating is actually was much more damaging to me than a physical affair would have been, I think. But I think it's hard to say because I didn't go through the other, or at least not that I'm aware of. So the emotional cheating, though, was the reason that was something that was a big deal to me was because, and also to her, was because we actually had good friends that did that in their relationships, and we saw how damaging it was to their relationships. So she had one of her best friends in where she came from. My ex-wife is from Wyoming, and one of her best friends there, her significant other, had several emotional affairs on her that really damaged the relationship to where I believe it even caused her to not necessarily want to marry that woman. One of my best friends had an emotional affair on her wife throughout most of their marriage, and it also caused a huge rift between them, or a lot of issues between them during that time. So it was just something that we both had witnessed our friends kind of do, and we're just like, that was not okay to us. And I did not want that, obviously, in my marriage, and have to try to work through something like that. I actually feel like I know myself pretty well. Even before, all of this, I know myself even better now, but even before all of this, I knew that cheating was going to be something incredibly difficult, if impossible, for me to overcome personally. And so that's why I really wanted to talk about it with my ex-wife before we got married, so we were on the same page. And I felt really good about these conversations. I felt like we were on the same page. And we both we were working really hard to just have that trust. One of the things that was really comforting in our relationship early on was that my ex-wife was never really guarded about her phone ever. She didn't have a lock on her phone. And even when she had to put a lock on it later, because the new phones, some of them kind of require it, she had given me her code, so it was never a secret. I never had a lock on my phone, and she never kept it on her. She would leave it around, and things like that never made me question her intentions or her actions, and that was really comforting to me, which really made me feel safe in marrying her so soon. Just to give a little background and an idea, anybody who has been in a relationship with a narcissist knows that they love to love bomb you early on. They want to get you as quickly as absolutely possible. And so I met my ex-wife in October of 2015, and we were married in July of 2016. Just to give you an idea of how quickly our relationship escalated. But again, during those times, I felt like we had a lot of good conversations, and I felt good about the pace we were moving. It didn't seem that crazy at the time. Now, so the reason I want to tell this story is just to let everyone know, like, we had conversations about cheating, what cheating looked like, what it looked like to us, what we thought was acceptable, not acceptable, and that we had these clear expectations. They were very clear. And so, surprise, surprise, my ex-wife then goes and has the exact kind of affair that we specifically talked about would be so damaging to a marriage. And I was floored when I found out. It was the ultimate betrayal. I mean, just all the cliches, a punch to the gut, and it was really the spiral down the hill that really caused a lot of the other, or really not caused, but exposed all the other issues that were wrong in our marriage. So that I just wanted to start with that story before moving on. All right, guys. I also realize I'm probably going to have to start doing some kind of introductions for each of these videos to keep everybody on track. But this is part 3 of the story of my ex-wife's affair. So if you haven't watched part 1 and 2, you should go and watch those first. So I mentioned in the previous parts that me and my ex-wife had several conversations and established clear expectations of what cheating was to us, what kinds of relationships were appropriate and inappropriate within a marriage before we got married. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the logistics that are important to the affair and why it impacted me in the way that it did. So when we first got married, we had talks about, building a family together. One of the things, again, my wife made very clear was that she had to be a mom above all else. And so that I understood that was important to her. I also wanted to be a parent with her. And so, I took that serious. And we talked about what was the timeline for that. What did we think was an appropriate time to start having children? Because we were already moving pretty fast. I felt like children was not something you wanted to rush too much. So when I told her, thinking about the timeline, I gave her a 2-year mark, that I think that we needed 2 years to get moved in together, married, and kind of work through life a little bit before bringing kids. She was also moving here from Wyoming, and so it was to establish a career for her. I was working on my career, and also, I actually even hate talking about this because it's not really mine to say, but it is important to the story. But my ex-wife was also infertile, so she couldn't have children herself. That meant that responsibility was put on me, and I accepted that responsibility. I knew that before we got married, and I accepted that. Now, anyone who's ever known me knows that although I wanted children, I never wanted to have the children. I never wanted to be pregnant or experience that. That was not something that I ever thought that I was going to do in my life. But I married someone that wasn't possible, and so I accepted that responsibility, and I was going to try to be the one to get pregnant. And but I knew that I was heavy, I was big, and wasn't healthy enough, and I wanted to be safe. Obviously, I didn't want to die during this process, so I knew I needed some time to also get healthy and establish healthy habits and just lose some weight to prepare for pregnancy. And so that's why I also gave the 2-year mark as well, to account for all of that. I'm sure, people are probably surprised that we had so many conversations about this, but this is why, looking back now, it's so crazy that, she convinced me that I wasn't a good communicator because I feel like I am a really good communicator, and I set really good expectations. So anyways, so that is a factor in here as well. So during this time, I didn't just, sit idly by. I did go out and I got a gym membership, And I worked out every morning. In fact, I worked out at like 5 o'clock every morning to show her that I was serious about this. I was going to lose weight. I was going to get healthy. So that way in that 2-year time frame, I was, my body was prepared for this. All right. So again, to remind everyone, we got married in July of 2016. So at the turn of the new year in 2017, an election occurred, which caused also some other shifting, where we became part of an LGBTQ organization. Now, it wasn't its own nonprofit yet. It was just starting, but we went in full force. And while part of that organization, the local DHHS here, which is the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically Child Protective Services, reached out to our organization via email, which we were a part of, and asked if there were any LGBTQ couples who were set up to take in a trans teenager, because they thought it would be better for them to have an LGBTQ couple who kind of understood, things like that a little bit more while they were working on their relationship with their family, that kid with their family. And I was at work at the time that this email came in, and my ex-wife saw it, read it, and immediately responded to it and asked, yes, me and my wife can do this. Can we get more information? Can we set up a meeting to talk more about this, and set up a meeting with DHHS? And so then when I got home from work that day, my ex-wife asked me, hey, did you see that email from the organization? And did you read it? And I was like, I haven't had a chance. And she told me all about it and was like, we have a meeting in about 45 minutes with this person to talk about it. And I was like floored, because I was like, this is a lot. This would be taking on a teenager who, wants to transition, but is also trying to work on their relationship with their family and stuff like that. And there was a lot of other factors too. And we weren't married for very long. We weren't even married for a year yet. And I was like, this is a lot. I don't think that we're ready. And I said that. I was like, I do not think that we're ready for this. And that made her very, very upset, because, that's what she wanted. She wanted to be a mom. This was her opportunity to be a mom. And she couldn't understand why I was preventing her from being a mom. And she actually said that. And I said that I wasn't trying to prevent her from being a mom, but we are married. I don't know if you remember that. We got married a few months ago, and we're, trying to do this together. And I thought that we were going to try to have a baby. This is why I'm working out every morning, and then I'm trying to get healthy and all that. But to her, I think she just saw this fast track to being a parent and wanted to just latch on to that. I'm going to continue this. I'm going to pause this here, continue this in part 4. All right, so this is part 4 in the series of my ex-wife's affair. So if you haven't watched part 1, 2, and 3, go watch it. So I left off talking about how my ex-wife intercepted an email from DHHS about taking on a trans teen, signed me and her up for it without talking to me first. And when I expressed that I didn't think that we were ready, she became very upset. And so, because we had clear expectations of the time frame of children, I brought all of that up before this meeting and said, hey, I thought we discussed a timeline of 2 years. I thought we discussed that I was going to try to get pregnant first. And that's why I'm doing all these things. I'm working my goals. I'm showing you that I have, intentions here. I'm doing the right things. And I don't think that we're ready. We hadn't been married a year yet. And that first year was rocky. And so I was like, we're not ready. But she had already set up this meeting. So I was like, let's go ahead and talk to these people. Let's get some information. Because in the very least, we need to get this information for the organization anyway, so we can maybe reach out to other LGBTQ families. And then we'll discuss it afterwards. So we go, we talk, we learn about this trans teen, the whole circumstance, their whole story and everything. And at the end of it, Haley then turns to me and said, okay, so what do you think? Do you want to do it then? And I was like, still no, even more no now than before. I really do not feel like that we're ready. I'm not ready. I need more time. I really would rather stick to the original time frame and try to have, do our original plan. And so, of course, that made her incredibly upset. I mean, so upset that she mourned the loss of this child as if it were her own, which was very hard for me to understand. I'll admit. And not that I didn't have empathy for this child and feel for this child and want to help in some way. In fact, I did, and I did offer, and my ex-wife did not want that kind of relationship. I said, we could be mentors to the family if you want, or just to the kid, and so they had some LGBTQ elders in their life, but I don't think we can parent this child together in this capacity. And she's like, no, if we can't be a parent, I don't want any of it. I don't ever want to talk about this again. And she really shut down from that point, shut down, checked out of our marriage, out of life, really in general, and just really went into a deep depression during that time. I, asked her to go to therapy to try to work through it, or try to find some way to work through it with her, and she just didn't care, didn't want to do any of that. She was really just holding on to her anger for me, and wanted to just be angry. And so I just kind of didn't really have any choice but to let her be angry and just try to, I just hoped that she would work through it and we would get to the other side. Now, during this time, she did also start to kind of talk to some old friends online, and she started to become a little more secretive and guarded of her phone. And I noticed those things, and it concerned me. And so when she mentioned a particular woman that she mentioned a lot was the woman she had an affair with, which I immediately, was like, hey, I had a talk with her. I was like, the way you talk about this person, is this somebody that you dated? And she's like, yeah, this is an ex in the past, but we dated back several years ago. It was very short. She ended up cheating on me, and we've just kind of been friends off and on since, and really made it seem like it wasn't that really a relationship. Even talked about how this person was a lot like me, that this person played the banjo, I play guitar, that we would actually probably be really good friends. And she told me some things about her and her wife, Cece, their relationship, because they talked about it. That was also one of my concerns, was that they were talking about their marriages so much. And she told me that they had a rocky marriage, but that Cece's wife had just gotten pregnant, and they were going to have a baby together. And she even talked about going up there for the baby shower and getting a gift. And I was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. That all sounds fine. But obviously, I was concerned about this person. So then as time goes on, as the weeks go on, my ex-wife becomes much more guarded and much more secretive. She would come home and kind of sit in the driveway for 20 minutes before coming inside, and I could see she was on her phone and laughing and smiling and spent a lot of time before coming in. She would keep her phone on her at all times. It would either always be in her back pocket. She would take it into the shower with her. She would sleep with it under her pillow at night. And these were all major red flags going off in my head. And I really started to suspect that she was having an affair with this woman. And so as this goes on, the catalyst that really was I have to look at her phone. And I mean, I never wanted to be that person to look through my spouse's phone. That did not make me feel good. I did not want that. but I knew that I needed to know what was going on, and my ex-wife wasn't going to tell me the truth. So, our relationship is getting worse and worse. We're talking less and less. Everything was, nothing was really good. We weren't communicating anything. We weren't spending any real time together. And in fact, what had happened was, for the 4th of July, I went to my brother's house, and she was supposed to come by after she got off work that night and spend time with the family. And when she got off work, she said that she just didn't feel like it, and she just was going to go home and go to bed. And this upset me because I was really looking forward to spending time with her. And so I decided to, I was really upset. So I left my brother's and I went home to just go spend time with her. So I'm going to continue this in part 5. Hey guys, all right. So this is part 5 of the story of my ex-wife's affair. So go watch the other parts if you haven't watched these the ones before. So 4th of July happens. My ex-wife is supposed to show up after work, decides she's just not up for it, and goes home. And so I leave the 4th of July party my brother was having and go home to spend time with her because I hadn't really seen her. And she, obviously when I got there was already in bed, and we didn't really spend any time together. We just went to bed. And when I woke up the next morning, her phone wasn't quite underneath the pillow. It was exposed, and it was enough for me to be able to grab it without her noticing or waking up. And I knew that this was my opportunity to do some investigation and maybe try to figure out what was going on. And so luckily her phone wasn't locked, and I was able to get in and start reading through messages, and I go right to the messages between her and this other woman that she had been talking about, Cece's wife. And so, not to my surprise, I knew what I was going to find there, but of course, several messages back and forth, a very inappropriate, sexually inappropriate, cheating type messages that will be forever burned in my brain. And so I know now it's confirmed she is having an affair with this person. Unfortunately though, she was keeping it a secret. She knew what she was doing. So there was actually only messages for a couple weeks back, but I knew that this must have been going on longer. So she must have been, keeping up on deleting messages between the two. So what I did then is, well, if you're having an affair, you might be telling your friends about it. So I went to her friends' messages to see if she had talked to them about it. And sure enough, she had. And those messages went way back, a lot further back. So I knew that the affair had been going on for at least a couple months with the time frame that I have. So the reason for that she told her friends that, she would send messages that this woman would send her, like these lovely messages. And her reasoning that she was, entertaining this was because I wasn't obviously taking it seriously enough of, making her a mom, essentially, that I wasn't really trying hard enough. And now I didn't want to, foster this trans teenager with her. And I was just not taking it serious enough. And so as I'm reading through messages that she's sending her friends, and she's sending them screenshots of other messages between herself and that woman, there was a few things that stood out that were shocking. So the first one that really upset me was this woman sent her essentially a love letter. It was a letter that said all the reasons I love you on it, which are big words, right? Reasons that she loves her, that she loves my ex-wife. And in this letter, when you open it up, there was a bunch of little ripped out pieces of papers of all the individual reasons why she loved my ex-wife. And I'm like, how did she even get this letter? So as I'm reading through her telling, her friend asked, well, how did you even get that letter? Like, did she send that to your house? No. My ex-wife asked her mom if this woman could send it to her house. And her mom lived just like 2 blocks down and 2 blocks over from us at the time. And her mom said, yeah, sure. So this woman sent my ex-wife a love letter to my ex-mother-in-law's house. And she talked about, she's so confused, but she's swooning over this woman. She's, falling for her. She would use terminology like that. But she was very careful about leaving out like any like responses, like any of her responses back to that woman, which was really my detriment because without seeing, and maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but if I had seen her respond back with the same thing, like, I love you too, or, things like that, I think it would have been, I don't think I would have tried to work through it. But because I had that little doubt that this person it was just kind of one-sided, that really got me. But so, of course, I read that. That upset me that this is my mother-in-law at the time. Like, I thought we were family. Like, why would somebody allow that? Like, so that was upsetting. And then the thing that really got me, well, this is the second thing that really got me, was this woman is in love with her. She's saying, I'm in love with you. And this woman is pregnant with her and her wife's first baby. And I read one of the screenshots she sent to her friend was this woman was saying, hey, I'm ready to leave Cece. If you're ready to leave Ledessa, then we can be together and we can raise this baby together. And I was floored. Absolutely floored. Because I knew the thing that she wanted most was to be a mom. And now this woman is essentially offering her a baby. And I saw those messages and I was like devastated. I thought, well, she's for sure going to leave me. Like, she's not going to give up a baby, right? Like, she's being offered a baby. This woman is saying all the right things. Like, our marriage is done. It hasn't even been a year yet, and we're done. And I was devastated that it was going to end like this. And then the last thing that was super upsetting about all the messages was one of the messages to one of her friends was that, again, I wasn't taking it seriously enough to get pregnant. And she said, I think Ledessa is just using her weight as an excuse to not get pregnant. In fact, I think that she could get pregnant now and she would probably be okay. And when I saw that, I knew, although I didn't want to believe it, I knew that she didn't actually really care about me at all. She did not care whether I lived or died through a pregnancy as long as it made her a mom. All right, guys, this is part 6 of the story of my wife's affair. So again, go watch the other parts before this one so that it all makes sense. So I've just found out about the affair by reading text messages between her and the other woman, and also her and her friends and all of that. And I am devastated. So I read through everything. I snap pictures of everything, right? Like I snap pictures of everything that I can to have this proof in case she tries to deny it or whatever, and just to have it. So I then wake her up and confront her. As soon as she wakes up, I mean, she's pretty groggy, but she knows exactly what I'm talking about because I'm holding her phone. And I go, so this woman that you've been telling me not to worry about, clearly I have to worry about. And, what's going on? She immediately confesses, says she's so sorry, and none of it meant anything. And she doesn't really have any feelings for this person. And she just entertained it. It was a fantasy. And she knew it wasn't real. It's just because she's been so depressed. And, because she really wanted to be a parent or a foster parent to that teenager. And so I said that I needed some time to process all of this. And that, I didn't know what was going to happen. I asked her if she really wanted to go with this woman. And shockingly, she was like, no, I don't want anything to do with her. I love you. I want to work through this. I'm so sorry. And I was just like, okay, if that's the case, then you can't have any contact with her from this point forward. And she said, absolutely, no, I completely understand. And so she drafted up a message to that woman and said pretty much, Ladessa just found out. I've really hurt her. She's devastated. And I'm sorry I let this go on this far. But I really love my wife and I want to work on my marriage. And so, we're not going to have any more contact. And, I watched her send the message and block that person and blocked her on social media and everything. And I said, I need some time to process this. And so I went into my office and immediately went onto the internet to try to find this woman and find her wife, because I wanted to tell her wife, Cece, what was going on. They were going to be having a baby together, and this person is promising their baby to someone else and clearly having an affair. And I felt like she needed to know. But within those few minute time frame of my ex-wife sending the message to her, and by the time I got to my computer and started doing some searching, I had been completely blocked from not only all of her social media, but all of Cece's social media as well. She had gone onto her wife's social media and blocked me from her social media too. So I could not contact her in any way. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to let this go. I need to go get some air. So I actually went on a 3-hour motorcycle ride with my mom. And we just went for a long motorcycle ride to just kind of decompress. And before I went on that motorcycle ride, before I'd left, my ex-wife wanted to make it clear, she was going to do whatever it took to work through this, to make this marriage work, that she was not going to ever have contact with her again, that she was going to give me access to all of her electronics, and have transparency, whatever I needed to build trust back again. And I said, okay, I left. I went for a motorcycle ride. When I came back, my ex-wife was gone. I assumed she was at her mom's. So I messaged her and was like, hey, are you at your mom's? And she said yes. And so then I go to get on some of her electronics. She had a laptop and a tablet and stuff. And she had written down, all of her passwords before I had left. So I went out to get onto her electronics and they don't work. The passwords don't work. And so then I messaged my ex-wife back and I say, hey, these passwords aren't working. And so then she calls me, and now she has a completely different tone in her voice. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I decided that I'm not going to do that. It's not healthy to go through my things. And so I'm not going to do that. We could go to marriage counseling or something and work on the trust there. But I decided I'm not going to do that after all. And it was so eerie. I've one, my head was spinning because I was like, how long was I on a motorcycle ride for? Like, I know it was like 3 hours, but seriously, this person went from like saying, I will do whatever it takes, to suddenly like, no, planting the seed of, it's unhealthy if you go through my things. And that was really the start of the heavy gaslighting and manipulation that she did to convince me that the affair was my fault, or more so, like, also that if I, whatever I was initially wanting to do to try to overcome it was unhealthy, and planting in my brain that I'm actually the unhealthy one. And so I told her, you should come home so we can talk about all this. And I asked her why the change, and, like, I don't understand what's happening here. And essentially what she told me was that she had never stepped out on any relationship she had ever been with. This was the first time. And so there must be something terribly wrong with our relationship, that she did this, and she needs to figure out why. And she is going to go and find her own therapist. And I said, why? I think we need to go to a marriage counselor as well. And she said, that would be fine, but that's on you to find that person, and I'll go. But again, she wasn't going to have any transparency or anything like that. And in fact, she changed all of her passwords and everything, and added a lock code to her phone, which she didn't even have prior to this. So, I didn't have, like, I was pretty, skeptical and devastated still of all this. And so I, went on the search for a marriage counselor to try to get us into that process and start all of that. Hey guys, this is part 7 of the story of my ex-wife's affair. And so I want to take this moment to just kind of recap everything. You should still go back, watch all the other parts too, to kind of understand what's going on. But I do want to just recap everything that all the information I've given, and just process out loud what I processed during this time. So, my ex-wife and I meet in October of 2015. We are married by July of 2016. We had several talks about cheating and affairs and things like that, and also a timeline of when we would start trying to have children. And that was a 2-year plan. So during that time, I start working on my health, since I'm the one who has been given the responsibility to get pregnant. So I start working out every morning and eating healthier and being healthier in general. I didn't mention this in other videos, but because I forgot, but I want to mention now, not only was I working out and trying to be healthy, I was also tracking my period, and also taking ovulation tests to track my ovulation, just to give you an idea of how serious I was taking the plan of trying to get pregnant. By January of 2017, we joined an LGBTQ organization, and then I think it was about February or March of 2017, so a couple months later, that's when DHHS contacted the organization looking for an LGBTQ couple to foster a trans teen. My ex-wife responded to that without talking to me, and I advised her that I did not think that we were ready yet. And I was correct, just to point that out. She then proceeds to punish me, and gives me the silent treatment, withdraws from our life, withdraws quality time, intimacy, all that stuff. By about May of 2017 is when I believe she starts the affair with Cece's wife. And Cece's wife had just become pregnant with her and her wife's first child. In July of 2017, that's when I discovered the affair. And and everything that went with that. So the discovery of the affair brought out all of this. That a married woman is now in love with my ex-wife, and that married woman is pregnant with her and her wife's first child, but has now offered their child to my ex-wife if she just leaves me, and she will leave Cece, and then they can have this baby together. I find out also that my ex-mother-in-law is like a level 10 enabler for my ex-wife. I also realized that my ex-wife did not really care about whether I lived or died through a pregnancy, as long as it meant she could be a mom. I also wanted to try to reach out to Cece to let her know of this affair, but have been blocked on all social media, and there's no way for me to reach out to her. And then my ex-wife also went from being extremely sorry and remorseful for this affair to then convincing me that there's actually must be something wrong with me, which is why she cheated. One of the things she did tell me was that because I wouldn't foster the teenager with her, I was preventing her from being a mom, and I knew how important that was, and that was wrong of me. And that was one of the other reasons she started the affair. So the affair in general was my fault, and I am now convinced that I have broken everything, and it is my responsibility to fix it. And all of this has happened, and all of this stuff is going through my head, and we are just about 2 weeks out from our 1-year wedding anniversary. So this is where cognitive dissonance starts to set in. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is where a person has come to a point where they essentially are forced to hold conflicting ideas about a person. So for me, it was my ex-wife. I loved her. I thought I could trust her. She was this loving, nurturing, attentive person that would never hurt me. But yet now I realize like she has entertained an affair with a married woman, entertained the idea of possibly raising somebody else's child with her, and that kind of makes her crazy, for lack of a better term. And when you have these really conflicting ideas, it is really hard for your brain to comprehend that, and so it wants to accept the one that is easier to digest. And I wanted to believe that I married a good person who loved me, and so therefore, in order to hold that idea, everything must be my fault. And so that is now where I am at this point in time, going into my 1-year wedding anniversary. And to say that I was confused, incredibly confused and sad, is an understatement. And even though deep down I could not see a light at the end of the tunnel, I had also taken vows. I said, until death do us part, and I meant it. And I did not want to be the reason that my marriage failed. And so that was the real turning point to where I decided I was going to do whatever it took to try to overcome this and improve our marriage and our relationship, and find a way to make my ex-wife a mom. And I keep wanting to say it that way because I know it sounds weird, But that really is what it was. It wasn't about building a family anymore at that point. It wasn't, I was trying to build a family together and have children together. My job at this point was to make her a mom. And those are different things. Building a family and making someone a mom are not the same thing. And I'm going to elaborate more on that. But I think this will be like the last video for today. And I'm going to record some more later and put them out a little bit later. But I think you all have enough videos now to kind of get through and get an idea of the start of the affair, how it all happened, what led up to it, how it affected me, what I am thinking, how I have processed it, and where I was mentally at this point in my marriage.